We have a special manuhiri joining us for today's pakihere roki roki. Nā reira, e hoa. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Francie.
Nā koe, whakamohio mai ki te iwi, ko vai koe, no hea koe.
Oh, tēnā koe, France. Well, nō reira, tēnā tātou te iwi. Ko Rahera Te Wano tēnei. Nō tūwhare toa ahau, nō waikato ahau. Ai, kia ora.
Kia ora e hoa. Nā reira, let's start off with us as tamariki, us as nohi nohi. Nā reira, give us a little bit of a kōrero on where your journey started, where your pathway started, whether it was through kohanga reo, kura.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Taumarunui. We lived there for a little bit and did a little bit of moving around. Lived in Tāmaki for a bit as well. And yeah, I unfortunately actually didn't get to go to kohanga reo, but always have been fortunate to have been raised in Te Ao Māori. Yeah, with my mum and dad. So, and then once mum and dad were done with the city lifestyle, being urban Māori, we made the trip home. And fortunately, I was about 12 at the time.
Ai.
So yeah, I have been there ever since in Taumarunui.
As a young high schooler, as a young taura at Te Kura o Ngāpuki, what did you see yourself, or where did you see yourself going, heading into after kura life?
Oh man, I think I knew I was probably gonna go to whare wānanga. That was always a goal of mine. And I actually can remember when I decided that, and that was probably when I was maybe 9 or 10, and I was driving with my mum down to Taumarunui, and we were driving past Waikato, and my mum was like, telling me about the whenua raupatu and all of that, the confiscations and stuff like that, and I was getting to those ages when you're starting to learn that that life isn't as cheery as you believe it to be when you're
young.
You're tamaiti nohi nohi. So and it was there I felt so mamai, so pody, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do something. Like, that's all I knew. I just knew I wanted to do something about that. So yeah, probably since then, and then I just carried that into whare kura. And I will speak to our teachings at kura. Like, we were exposed to so many hapu iwi events, kaupapa, Māori. We had to go to protests.
Aye.
We were informed of like what's happening in the government quite often, I would say, because of our kaiako. They made sure to let us know that. So that definitely had a part to play.
What were some of the teachers, because we had a lot of amazing pukenga that were passed on to us. We had the likes of, Koro Duncan, the likes of Matua Haki Williams, Uncle Chenny Iwiko. What are some of the things that they've passed down to us that you will carry in your everyday life?
That's a good question. I think one of the big ones is whakapapa. Or the kōrero, the hitori, the pūrākau, just all of that mātauranga iwi that they shared with us is like invaluable. You don't realise how fortunate you are at the time to be even receiving all this, this knowledge about not only like who we are, our marae, our hapu, but our iwi is pretty special. And I definitely carry that in everything I do. I think I know who I am because of those teachings, and it also helps me when I go out to, the world, when I'm not living at home. I'm reminded of that everywhere, because once you've learnt that to our papa of like who you are, you then can connect it to other people and other iwi.
And within Te Kura o Ngāpuki itself, it kind of talks what the name is, the wāhi, and where we are. Surrounded by all the hills, by all our maunga and our whenua, our awa. And, obviously we were surrounded by the taiao. And that kind of takes us into our kōrero, because our taiao girlie here, since coming out of Te Kura o Ngāpuki, she has been hard out into her mahi within university. What was your direction and what was your place there at Te Whare Wānanga o Waikato? What did you study, let our whānau know?
Yeah, well, I studied environmental planning, so I just got graduated with my Bachelor's of Environmental Planning in Te Ara Taiao, so Māori and the Māori stream at Te Whare Wānanga o Waikato. But yeah, like Francie said, I didn't get to that on my own. Like, that was definitely informed by where we're from. You know, we're surrounded by an abundance of whenua. Even in Te Whare Toa, we're one of the most, in my humble opinion, one of the most beautiful iwi of our whenua, our moana. And I think if you're from here, you know, it's pretty hard to not be in tune with our taiao, I would say. You've got some connection. And so, yeah, just that aroha for my whenua was definitely the guiding that direction into university.
What is something that you took from kura going into the life of university?
Yeah, that was a hard one. Well, it was off the back of COVID, so that was like another thing to navigate in itself. So resilience, like uni was quite hard, I will say. It's good, but man, it was really hard. But I just remembered all those times that we had at kura that were challenging. Definitely helped. It was almost like, what do you have to lose? Just to give it a go. Try my best, and remember that my whānau, my iwi, they're there to support me. That's definitely what carried me through.
Now, within your mahi at Te Whare Wānanga o Waikato, to me, for someone who took a different pathway going straight into mahi, what does university have to offer to tauira that are freshly out of kura, and how were you able to know what you wanted to study and confidently go into university?
Oh, pātai pai. For me, university was just a door, I reckon, just an opportunity to try something new. It's not for everyone, and that's all right. I reckon for me it was an opportunity to try something new. I kind of knew that I wanted to do something taiao, ao Māori, bit of pū taiao as well. And honestly, one of my whanaunga, Te Rua, Wallace, who I work with now, she randomly actually approached me and said, I think you need to do environmental planning, which was buzzy because I didn't even know what it was at the time. And then I looked it up online that night, and then I was like, oh, that's actually kind of what I want to do. And so it was, if you didn't know, environmental planning is just a bit of taiao mixed with, whakaaro Māori, in my opinion. So yeah, once you have that idea of where you're kind of, what you're wanting to do, I then just found the degree naturally. I went into the mindset that I will learn something, regardless if I stuck it out, if I left, if I stayed, I knew I'd come away with like an experience. So for me, that's what university was, just a big learning and honestly getting out of my comfort zone. That's one thing with university, is that it is uncomfortable because it's a Pākehā institution. So it's what you do with that akoranga, I reckon. And so I used it to channel my diddy for, it wasn't all fun. So I tried to like do my best to try and finish it, because, we've got all these kōrero saying that we're not smart, we can't, we drop out of uni. So I just honestly
proved it wrong.
Wanted to channel it into doing something that I prove myself wrong, prove the statistics wrong. Give it a go.
That's the one. I love it. Everything you pretty much highlighted has showed like exactly what your experience within your like 5 years after kura is mistakes, is you're going to go through blood, sweat and tears. You're going to, want to give up, and you're going to want to try something new. Like, that's what I love.
Giving it a go,
I know within your journey at Te Whare Wānanga o Waikato, you've been a part of many kaupapa, many different kaupapa, but also I want to highlight your haerenga. Your haerenga ki Taiwan. which was, you know, an opportunity, a lifetime opportunity. Let our whānau know, like, how that became and what was in this haringa.
Well, got to start with getting involved at whare wānanga. I reckon that's probably my biggest tip, is it's really hard because you've got to start fresh with meeting new people, but especially at Te Whare Wānanga o Waikato, there's a really good support system for tauira Māori, so that was probably the biggest boundary and uncomfortable barrier that I had to break, was just going to kaupapa, even if I didn't know anyone, even if I was scared. And once I went to that first kaupapa and kept going, I then was just more informed of all these opportunities. So I had it was a Prime Minister's scholarship to go to Asia, and the whare wānanga applies, and then they take a bunch of tauira as well that, you know, that tauira Māori, and they did one to Colombia and Taiwan. And I had seen a few of my friends go on it the year before, and I think I had just like had it in my mind. I was like, I wanna do that. And they let out the application forms, and you kind of had to speak to your mahi at whare wānanga, but also where you're wanting to go. And I wanted to find out more about taiao over in Taiwan. So that was the kōrero that I kind of spoke to, and was somehow made it to the list and got to go to Taiwan, and that was a real big, that was such a cool opportunity.
A beautiful haringa.
Yeah.
And I know you were over there for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. Like, what was, give us a bit of a kōrero, like how some of your mahi was a part of this haringa.
I think a lot of it was whakawhanaungatanga amongst our tauira. That was a big thing, you know. When we were over there, we would basically just go to all their iwi and get to kōrero to them, do some presentations, and it was an opportunity to showcase not only who you are individually, but as Tiwi Māori. So you're literally explaining to Taiwanese people what Māori is, trying to encapsulate our whole ahurea in, you know, one sentence to someone who doesn't even speak English. So that was a lot of that mahi, and just also realizing how fortunate we are as Tiwi Māori to have what we do have.
And what were some of the similarities within our taiao, within the use of our taiao that our whānau in Taiwan kind of had?
I think one big takeaway was their government were very similar to the government of this time right now, you know, very oppressive. You know, they try to erase their indigenous people, and then so a way to erase the people is to erase their taiao. So it just made me realise that they are very resourceful for what they do have. You know, even if they didn't have a lot of whenua, not a lot of whenua like we have, they still were very resourceful, making sure that they're not wasting any sort of area. They're very resourceful with their even their materials and stuff like that. But also they tried to hold on to all the kōrero that they did have about their whenua. I think the similarities were definitely the aroha for their whenua. That was a big similarity that I noticed.
And that's something that us as all indigenous people can relate on a level, is the aroha we have for our people, our own people, but also the aroha that because of all the mamae that's happened to across all indigenous people, it shows that moke-mokeness that we have for other nations, for other iwi, for other indigenous people, you know, your haringa to Taiwan, you know, you'll see the mamae, you feel the mamae, but also you understand the mamae that they went through and that their people went through.
That was a beautiful way to just witness, oh wow, the way that I care for my maunga, my moana, someone else cares for over in Taiwan. And they have similar kupu and similar, uaratanga, all of the same values that we have. You know, it's just in different languages and in different ways, but that was definitely the key takeaway as well. And as Taiwanese, as Māori, our whenua is our taiao is like number one.
Nā reira, we're just getting into the last bit of portion of our kōrero. And that's just to kind of kōrero about your mahi that you do currently. Nā reira, let our whānau know what your mahi is and where you mahi.
Yeah, so I'm an environmental planner. I work at a Māori consultancy called Iarau. We're based in Rotorua. We were founded by Arihia Hoani Waka and Puahaere Waka. And they were basically given some taiao mahi, and they wanted to reach out to a bunch of other rangatahi Māori to help them in that. And that was planning mahi. So then you bring along the likes of Te Rua Wallace, Te Riri Pōtiki, who's from here, and Navara Huaki, and myself, who's just somehow ended up getting into with these amazing people. And yeah, so we're planners for environmental planning, which is basically, I don't really know how to explain it that well, but I'll try my best. It's the management of the taiao. So there's Pākehā ways of laws and the environmental laws that they use to control how all of our resources are used. And our Māori lens comes in and says that this is how we think that our taiao should be used to honour the mana of iwi and hapu. And so that's basically our mahi, is helping iwi, hapu and marae on how to participate and make decisions about their taiao e ai ki tō rātou, tikanga, to tikanga Māori, to their mahi, their tikanga a iwi as well. And to me, that's just being Māori and trying to find ways in the Pākehā systems or the Western systems to figure out how we can make sure that the mahi that's being done is honouring the taiao.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because Iarau has been, something that's recently just launched. What's the growth been like over the last couple of years?
So Iarau, I believe, was launched in the end of 2023. It was just a team of 2, and they were, I believe, out of their whare, and they were consultants. And now we've grown over the years. We've added, I think, maybe 10 staff. I'm not too sure, fact check that. But yeah, we've now got a tari in Rotorua, and we've been working for the past 3 years on a number of contracts. We've done all sorts of things. We've probably engaged with about maybe 15 iwi, and just our small little team. But the growth has been pretty massive.
And you offer like other service spaces. Can you let out like kōrero about those spaces?
Yeah, well, our primary service right now that we're offering is called Raurako, and we basically help provide taiao support to iwi and hapu. And we actually have a few spaces available, so if you know of any iwi or hapu that needs to jump in on that. But yeah, we go and meet with their iwi and their hapu, we figure out their taiao, we kōrero to them, and then we're in there and we're just basically on our laptops to figure out how we can help them. And that's with also in an interesting environment with all the laws and the reforms that are going on. I'm not sure if you're aware, but there's lots of divisive bills that are directly affecting our taiao. So we're helping our whānau pretty much navigate those spaces. But that's our primary service that we're offering.
Pretty much you've just kind of opened my eyes to a whole new something, coming from like working for myself, working in the sound of iwi, to being able to understand what a taiao perspective looks like from an environmental planner. Nā reira, what changes would you as an environmental planner like to see within environmental management here in Aotearoa?
I think I would like to see a government that values our taiao the same way that we do as Māori.
I love that. I love that answer, that whakaatu. Why is it important to have more rangatahi Māori in this field?
I think it's so important to have more rangatahi Māori in this field because, it's just more representation of who we are. I think one misconception of environmental planning is that, it's for one type of people, but actually this kaupapa would resonate with a lot of rangatahi Māori, I feel, especially if you're passionate about the taiao and advocating for the rights of better outcomes for Māori. This is one way to do it. I'm very fortunate enough to work with lots of rangatahi Māori planners. That's basically who are at Iarau. But I know that not everyone's as fortunate to be surrounded by, around rangatahi Māori. So I reckon that's why it's just important to see, like any field, more of you in there because, we are the tirahu.
And I think that pretty much comes to a wrap-up of our show, of our kōrero, here on our On Kaupapa podcast. I think you've highlighted as a young adult stepping from the life of her high school into her adulthood, or like we like to say, the big scary world, but also highlighting your mahi within taiao. Nā reira, nā mātou te maringa nui e hoa. We were saying 16-year-old us would be absolutely laughing at 24-year-old, 23, 4-year-old us. Nā reira, that's our podcast for today.
Tēnā koe, France. Thank you for having me.